Hi you guys, welcome back. So today we're going to take a step back in time and we're going far back, okay? We're going all the way back to 2014 when Tiffany Henyard was just a newly elected trustee. And if you guys don't know who Tiffany Henyard is by now, she was the first woman mayor of Dolton, Illinois.
Tiffany Henyard will be sworn in as the village's first woman mayor.
She says she was the youngest mayor of Dolton, but my research tells me different. There was a guy named Michael Peck who was 36 at the time, and Tiffany Henyard was 37 when she became the mayor of Dolton. So technically, she will be the first youngest and oldest female because we don't know if there will ever be any more female mayors of Dolton. I know Dolton will probably not be quick to jump into bed with another female mayor due to the way she ended up flipping the script on them, okay, when she became mayor.
That's the problem with y'all. Y'all want to lead and don't know how to lead. Won't you follow my lead and you will understand how to do things? So I just want you to see me as strength and be your beacon of light and do the same thing that I'm doing. Just keep going. I got to have all this back and forth with my board. For what? When I put you in your seat, trustee house, trustee Belcher, never would have been a trustee. I the one made it possible for you guys to sit where you are now. And all I want to do is help the people. That's it.
You guys, really fast, if you're enjoying this video, please leave it a like. I know sometimes I forget myself when I'm watching a video to hit the like button, even though I actually like the video. And leaving a like on the video actually helps it grow within the YouTube algorithm, and it will get that video out to a wider audience. And hitting that like will cost you nothing, but it will help me out tremendously. All right, you guys, let's continue.
And then you, trustee house, that would never won if you ran.
A few moments later.
Right now, outgoing Mayor Tiffany Henyard's name has been removed from a sign outside Village Hall in South Suburban Dolton. In its place, incoming Mayor Jason House's name, who easily defeated Henyard in February's Democratic primary and then won the April 1st general election.
And another accomplishment of hers is that she was the first female supervisor of Thornton Township.
Put your hands together for your new township supervisor, Tiffany Henyard. Wow.
And she got both of these powerful positions, but in the end, she couldn't keep them because she is a controlling individual, and she wanted to just dominate everything. She couldn't get along with people, and that brings me back to why I'm making this video, because as we go back in time, we can see that Tiffany Henyard was much the same back in the day as she was when she became mayor. And the purpose of showing this is just to show you guys, you know, how she was back in the day, okay? And these older board meetings can kind of give us some insight into why some people might have voted for her, why they thought, oh, she has backbone, you know, she's going to stand up for herself. So yeah, we want her as mayor because she's going to stand up for us too, only to find out that that wasn't the case, okay? So in this particular board meeting, they're discussing a place called the Dorchester. And the Dorchester was, and I still believe is, a 5-story low-income retirement / assisted living home in Dolton. And the reason why this is being discussed in the meeting is because the village is footing the bill to keep the Dorchester up and running. So in this video, they're going over the possibility of extending a contract that the village had with a management company that was running the Dorchester. Basically, the people who fired people, and vetted people in to work at the Dorchester. Everyone was on board except for Tiffany Henyard, and Robert Hunt also had something to say about it. Now, you guys, if you don't know, Tiffany Henyard, Robert Hunt, and Stan Brown, you know, I call them the dynamic trio because, you know, they always like to get together and vote on things unanimously. So let's go ahead and hear Robert Hunt kind of discuss some things he wanted to change about the contract with his management agency, and then I'll chime back in.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the extension of the management contract for the Dorchester. Why did you want to pull it? We discussed this at the COW meeting. We spent quite a bit of time talking about this, talking about how to get this right, and we all agreed, except for one, for this extension until January, the end of January.
Yes, in the agreement I was requesting a couple of changes. I want to keep them in, but the current agreement has $5,000. I was requesting that amount to be moved to $2,000. I like to put that any new hires have to be approved by the board, just because the village is paying 100%.
Well, how about during this time they make no hires?
Well, I just think it's real. I don't know that someone might pass away, someone might quit, so I didn't want to stop them from hiring people. But I definitely feel putting a limit on making sure we are part of whoever you hire because we're fitting the bill. I'd like to make a motion to add that new hires need to be approved by the board and change the limit from 5,000 to 2,000.
So I really think the only change you need is to drop that from 5 to 2,500.
And in the email that I read, the Awakening had no problem with that. I'm sorry.
Lowering the threshold to 2,500, I have no problem with it.
So basically he wanted to lower, the amount. I don't know if that's the amount they're getting paid per hire. I have no idea. But the board unanimously agreed to the lower amount. Now let's go ahead and get on to, them talking about this management service. Now, this lady right here, she is the head of the management service, and she's coming to the board meeting because the board is discussing if they want to continue with the services, like I said before. Now, the only one who is against this is Tiffany Henyard. She's basically telling the lady she needs to run the business a little bit better than what she's doing. Let me just let you guys hear it from her own mouth, and then I'll chime back in.
Hiring new people,
Need board approval,
or new positions, or filling positions that are vacant in order to provide proper coverage. I can understand you having a problem with adding positions, which we're not doing, and we haven't done. But when you don't have enough people to cover, you got to get them from someplace. There are certain things you just cannot leave uncovered.
we could change that to the creation of any new positions.
I think it still should come across the board for the simple fact we still have to pay that employee. I understand what she's saying, that she's limited to staff, but we all make do with what we have with any business.
Can't make it like that.
No, I'm saying that to say that we're fronting the bill. I think it should come across the board like we do hires here at the Village of Dolton. Everybody comes across the board.
That's fine, but there's some critical positions that need to be filled
And I understand
at an expedient.
And I understand that, but if it's understaffed, meaning there's no residents in it, how many more employees do she possibly need? That's all I'm saying.
Let me explain. What I'm saying is there's some critical positions that you need, such as an RN. So if an RN quits and we don't have a board meeting for 3 weeks and you need by state regulations to have an RN, which would be a replacement, it wouldn't be like a new hire. It would be a new hire, per se, a new name, but it would still fall up under the same dollar amount that we already have budgeted.
And I understand you said we would not have a board meeting, we have special board meetings for anything else. We could do the same for that.
But these are not Dolton employees. These are our employees.
I understand. I still think it should come across the board because we front the bill.
I really take issue with that. I'm not going to.
I'm taking
come to
issue
the board every time I need to hire an employee.
Excuse me.
So she's basically telling this lady, hey, we're footing the bill for this, so we need to be in charge of hires. Everything needs to come before the board. We can do special board meetings. You know, the lady's like, I don't want to come to you guys every time I need to hire someone.
There are myriad instances where you might need to replace someone. We have 2 people who are leaving on the nursing staff. One is a full-time person who's moving out of town. Another one is a student who's going back to school.
So what you saying, that means that you're supposed to get yourself together, bring it across the board since you know 2 people are leaving. And then we vote on whoever it is that you sees fit to replace that position.
I think that would be too cumbersome. It is a difficult job to manage this as it is. To have to then come back and ask permission to hire people. You hired a management company who has 23 years of experience managing people. We're licensed by the state. We're licensed by the Department of Labor. We have rules, regs. We have policies, procedures. I don't understand the micromanagement.
You know, she's saying that that's like micromanaging, which I totally agree. That is micromanaging. I mean, you hired her to do this job, right? So why won't you trust her to make decisions about the people that are being hired at the Dorchester?
I'm sorry.
I
just don't understand that.
We're funding the bill, so we want to
I
make sure
understand
we
we're
keep
funding
the
the bill, but
numbers down.
micromanagement.
That's
the reason why.
I understand that, but micromanagement. If you want to micromanage like that, I'm sorry, Mayor, because this is really upsetting because
It's fine. It's fine, but one at a time. So the clerk is taking
You want to put folks' lives in danger.
But, good old Tiffany Henyard, she wants total control. And this is where we can see that she's always been like that from day one. When she makes up her mind, there's no bending back and forth. She's saying, the village is footing the bill, so the village basically should get 100% say in who gets hired, when they get hired, and all this stuff. Well, why don't you go over there and work there? Okay, why don't you do the interviews? Why don't you sit down and vet these people? She's not doing that, and that's why they hire this management service to do just that, but then they want to come in and micromanage after the fact. Or should I say Tiffany Henyard, because the other board members, they're pretty much on the same page with just letting the lady do her business and do what she needs to do.
It's been our experience here that anytime we want to hire somebody and it comes in front of this board, it's so lengthy that the people get discouraged. We wind up getting people that's not qualified, and it takes a length of time. We wind up so long. I think it takes over a month to try to get somebody hired. And it puts a burden on the existing employees, and it puts a burden on the services that we need to provide this building. So I think at some point you have to trust a little bit in the management team that you have there to say, if you got no call, no show, and you can wind up being 2 people that you depleted your regular workforce, and you have to. It takes too long for it to come through this board. So, and we're not talking about giving them increases. We're talking about replacing it at the same salary where we've already budgeted for that cost.
And in order to fill those positions, when you have people leaving positions like that, you have to fill it with overtime. Right. So, I mean, it's not expedient for anybody, for us or for you.
Well, apparently,
in our language, does it say that they are hard at the rate that would be the rate of the person leaving, or they are hard at a salary that is comparable to the salaries? I don't know what it says. Your Haris, are they hard at minimum wage or above minimum wage? Where are they hard when you hire them?
All of the people that have been hired within the same price range where everybody else is. So we look at where everybody else is in that category, and we add them in the same place. They're not hired at a higher rate.
Okay, so no savings. I said, so no savings. You just bring people in at the same rate. So if that person been there 30 years and they left at $30,000 a year, for instance, you bring the next person in at the same rate.
Where we have saved you is that we have added appropriate positions and we've cut down drastically on the overtime. Okay. We have provided an analysis of payroll so that you can see that. So we have saved there.
So we do have trustee Tiffany Henyard here making a valid point. She's saying that, you don't want to be bringing in people making the same amount of money as, say, your long-term employees who have been there for about 30 or so years. Yes, that is valid. You don't want to be in the business of doing that, because when other employees who have been there longer get wind of that, you're going to create a hostile work environment, to say the least. Now, I myself have worked in businesses before where they have hired new people coming in and paying them about the same amount, or sometimes even more than people who have been at that company for 10 plus years. And these are not people who have just been there staggered, really not doing much for the company. These were people who have put their blood, sweat, and tears into that company, who have gone out their way to, fill in on certain areas in the company when it was needed, but yet they're bringing in new staff and giving them the same amount of pay. And like I said, sometimes in some instances, paying the people more. And these people end up working alongside these long-term employees. And then the long-term employees find out, and the rest is history, okay? It begins to breed a culture of mistrust, and, they don't feel like all their hard work has paid off. They feel really underappreciated when things like that happen. But hey, it is what it is. When you work for these greedy corporations, that's something you should expect, right? But getting back to this board meeting, like I said, Tiffany Henyard did have a point there. They really should be looking at the amount that they're bringing people in. But then on the other hand, the lady said where they have been saving is that, getting new positions in there, getting new people in there, they're able to cut down on overtime. And what's probably happening is the long-term employees are getting a lot of overtime, and that can become very expensive. It can get really spendy. You would rather pay a new employee at, a regular cost for 8 hours than a senior employee overtime for 8 hours. Okay. I'm just saying that makes better business sense. I think they're both right, but at the same time, we see once again Tiffany Henyard not really knowing how to handle the situation in a diplomatic manner, wanting to just take the lead and take over fully, basically saying to this woman, oh, because the village is paying to keep the Dorchester open, you have to do exactly what we want, and that means bringing everybody that you want to hire before the board, and the board can decide that. I think that's going a bit overboard. Now, let's hear this lady explain to the board how she has attempted to, save money for the village by restructuring the staff there and things of that nature, but she's gotten pushback from that. Let's listen, and then I'll chime back in.
Another cost savings that we proposed in the proposal, if we really want to talk about cost savings, is that the place really needs to be engineered, re-engineered. There are certain positions that you really just don't need. That we have to keep because they were already there, or we hear back from they're being discontinued inappropriately or whatever, and we cannot manage fully with all of the interference. It's difficult.
That's exactly what you should do.
You could save a lot of money if you would just let us manage
it the best way. If anybody's interfering, you should let this board know, because nobody should interfere with what you're doing.
Right.
I think you're doing a wonderful job, and you should be allowed to manage that place. And we should not micromanage. And if you need to hire, you hire, and we'll find out at the next board meeting if we're overstaffed or if we spending too much money or we can't afford it, then we can talk about it at that time. But I do not want to have a meeting every time you need to hire somebody. So if you need to hire 3 people in 2 weeks, we're going to have 3 meetings to approve it. I don't want to do that.
So no new hire, just replacing what you
just replacing.
So you're comfortable with that?
Yes, I'm very
And you're
comfortable
with
especially
2,500?
considering what you said about the financial condition. I'm not crazy. No, I wouldn't do that for my own company, and I'm certainly not going to do it with you.
I appreciate that. So you're comfortable with the 2,500?
Yes.
Okay.
So as we hear, she's okay with the amount that they agreed upon, and she's also comfortable with just replacing existing positions. Okay, so she's saying she hasn't hired any new people. What she's basically doing is replacing people who have either been fired or left the job. So we got that all squared away. Now let's go ahead and continue, because I wanted to talk about why the Dorchester was such a controversial piece of land there in Dolton. Some people might be like, oh, Dolton always seems like they're so strapped for money and they're always trying to find ways to raise revenue through taxes. Why don't they just sell the Dorchester? Apparently at one point there was an offer for the Dorchester to be sold at $3 million, but they never went through with that. So my assumption as to why the Dorchester stood the test of time, why it's still there, and why I don't know if the village is still paying for it or not. The reason why there was so much passion behind it is because there were people living there, okay? And it's where a lot of elderly people were, where they spent their last days, where they lived. This was their home. And so speaking of that, and speaking of the passion that some of these people had about the Dorchester, let's listen to this next man, because he was totally against keeping the Dorchester around.
Yeah, Eric Gessie, lifetime resident of this town, and just over the year, I just can't believe how dysfunctional we are as far as this Dorchester situation goes. Anytime you have a business that basically has showed a loss for the last 13 years, this town is subsidizing the Dorchester at a cost of $40,000 minimum every single month. That's over $1,200 per resident per month to subsidize the existence of it. The Dorchester was proposed for sale at least 2 or 3 times back prior to November of last year. Nobody wanted to sell it. They said, oh no, we're going to get new management in here, we're going to turn it around. Let me tell you right off the bat, if a business does not make any profit in 4 years, it's considered a hobby. It's not a business. They have showed a loss for 13 years. Nothing against anything else.
Sorry, Mr. Gizzard, that's not true.
You haven't shown a profit.
I'm sorry.
We're not showing a profit. If you're showing a profit, why are you coming to this town asking for $40,000 every month if you show a profit? Am I right or am I wrong? Then you tell me you can't sell it. You can't sell it because you got outstanding bonds. This is a FOIA. I had it done, a FOIA from this town 1 month ago. It says right on here, there are no bonds or liens against Dorchester. If I can't well, this is from the town. This is not from me. This was dated on May 5th. If I can't get information pertaining to what's going on in the Dorchester, how can you make any rational decisions? How can you make a rational decision if the town can't even give me information? And this is it. I got all the paperwork on it. And this is just what was given to me. And I'll tell you who gave it to me right off the bat. I got the name right on here. Janice Johnson. Now, is she not giving me right information or what pertaining to what's going on at the door? I can't even request the information and find out.
So I'm not going to sit up here and act like this guy doesn't have a valid point, because a lot of people were wondering as well, why were they footing the bill for the Dorchester? And it wasn't making money. Not only that, it was bleeding money from the village. But the next thing he goes on to say, he talks about his experience, and then he says something that gets a reaction from, the people in the audience and the board members themselves. Let's go ahead and listen.
Just one thing also, I've worked for a major corporation, worked for CVS Pharmacy, I've been with the company for 11 years. And prior to that, I worked for Walmart. Any company that opens up a business, whether CVS, Walgreens, they open a business up, they give it 5 years. In 3 years, if it doesn't start showing a profit, they will come in and change management. They will change everything in the store. They give it another 2 years. If that store does not make a profit, they shut the store down. CVS is closing 78 stores this year nationwide. Walgreens is closing 83. They close it down, they'll move to a new location and reopen it up. You just had this happen with Sam's Club over in Lansing. When their TIF runs out, they're not making money. Hey, we'll pack the whole store up and move it to Calumet City. This is exactly what corporations do. If they do not make money, they move on. They don't sit there. They don't fall in love with the merchandise. The same thing is, if you have a brain and a town, you have to figure out what you're doing. Every resident in here is paying for the subsidy of the Dorchester.
It's not like the merchandise is people, so you can't.
All right. Sorry.
You can have my 3 minutes.
I'll give you 3 minutes. Thank you.
So yeah, needless to say, I think he knew he was going to get a reaction when he compared people to merchandise.
They don't fall in love with the merchandise.
He's basically saying, these big box companies, they don't just stick around if they're not making sales. They don't fall in love with the merchandise. And, and then some of the board members are saying, no, these are people. This is not merchandise. Because I mentioned before, the Dorchester was a senior assisted living home, basically. And they had staff on site that were helping to take care of people and things of that nature. But the way he came at it, I don't know if he was really trying to get a resolution or just trying to have his 3 minutes on the mic and get a reaction. But he definitely accomplished the latter. He got a reaction, but there was no solution that came out of what he said. No, I take that back, because his basic solution was that they sell the Dorchester. But throughout this meeting, they even discussed the ownership of the Dorchester, and that was another bag of worms that they didn't really want to open up, because at this point in time, they didn't even know who owned the Dorchester. It was just a hot mess, you guys. But this is my opinion on the matter with the Dorchester, and if they should sell it, and if they should keep footing the bill for it. In my opinion, these are senior citizens, and at one time they've probably either put in the time or put in the work, paid taxes, who have helped the economy there grow. So I really don't see the problem with, their living expenses being paid off of the taxpayer dollars, because at once they were the ones contributing to it. That's what government assistance is supposed to go towards in the long run, right? Not towards people who are just living off of it, that are able-bodied, that are young, and who are totally capable of supporting themselves. These are older, disabled people who can no longer work or take care of themselves. So what's wrong with having the taxpayers' money help them out, right, towards the end of their lives? But the thing about it is Tiffany Henyard, she always wants to control everything. Since the board controls the purse, she wants to control everything that goes on at the facility as well. And that's just not reality. If she wants that, she should be there and she should be overseeing it in person. But we all know how she is with business.
Next, we have our stuff trapped in the closet.
Not very business savvy considering how her past businesses went out of business. Okay. Well, you guys, that's going to be it for today. Let me know if you enjoyed this blast from the past. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave it a like. And if you're new here, subscribe.
Wow. What a creation, huh?